Hello, I'm Death's Arrow, and welcome to episode 18 of What I'm Thinking. In this episode, I will look at some of my favorite Tier 2 tanks and examine the concept of seal clubbing. From a historical perspective, all the Tier 2 tanks currently in game were developed during the interim period between World War I and World War II. These tanks spawned from the Renault FT-17, which is widely considered the first truly modern tank, as well as being the most numerously produced tank of the First World War. Coming out of World War I, the French were the only nation with a substantial amount of armor. The American, British, German, and Russians, as well as others, began to develop their own armor traditions during this period. In World of Tanks, Tier 2 tanks are at a unique position within the game. The tanks are very balanced against each other, and generally get matched up against other Tier 2s along with some Tier 1s without artillery. Occasionally, battles against Tier 3s do happen, which will include artillery. I'm specifically excluding Tier 2 tank destroyers and artillery from this discussion, as they get different matchmaking. The map rotation is also reduced. Tier 2 battles include Himmelsdorf, Malinovka, Mainz, and Province. Tier 2 tanks will also see Ensk, Karelia, and Pohorkova when they get pulled into Tier 3 battles. As previously mentioned, the Tier 2 tanks, including the premiums, are very balanced against each other. Each tank has its own strengths and weaknesses. Fast tanks tend to have poor armor but good guns. A heavily armored tank will have poor mobility or a limited gun, and in some cases both. Understanding the strengths and weaknesses of your tank versus your opponent is the key to victory. This makes most Tier 2 battles purely an affair of player skill rather than who has the better hardware, and the better player will win out more often than not. A number of generalized statements get thrown around the forums in regards to low-tier play. From play for fun to baby seal clubbing, it really runs the gamut. There are three basic types of players that are found in low-tier matches. True newbies, who are just learning the game, low-tier specialists who have thousands of games played at Tier 3 and below, and veterans playing low tiers for whatever reason. Included in these groupings are players that have been dubbed baby seal clubbers, or in some circles, pedo tankers. These players specifically play low tiers to beat up on newbies and pad their stats in the process. This isn't particularly difficult to do, as the general skill level at the low tiers isn't particularly great. Noobs are noobs after all. They're still figuring out the game and the basic mechanics. I personally don't have an issue with veterans playing low tiers for fun, or picking up some extra crew training in low tier premiums. Low tiers are fun after all, between no arty and a much looser style of play. What I do have a problem with are low tier specialists with highly inflated stats, and I thoroughly enjoy schooling them at every opportunity. The first replay I'll be looking at is my Tetrarch on Malinovka from December 29, 2012. Please note that this is an 8.2 patch battle. The Tetrarch was the 2011 Christmas gift from Wargaming and is a Tier 2 premium tank that cannot be purchased. The tank was developed by Vickers Armstrong for the British in 1938. 100 of these light tanks were built but not deployed as part of the North Africa campaign. 20 of the tanks were sent to the USSR as part of the Lend-Lease program. Tetrarchs were deployed to Madagascar and later to Sicily. In-game, the Tetrarch has an effective gun and good speed with weak armor. Although the front will bounce autocannon fire and occasionally larger rounds, the tank is effective at hit-and-run tactics as well as sniping. As noted on the top of the loading screen, this is a standard battle. Generally speaking, Tier 2 tanks don't see other battle modes, but every so often I have witnessed the other modes. Reviewing tank composition for this battle reveals the following. This is a Tier 2 battle with 13 Tier 2s on my team and 12 on the enemy team. My team has 2 Tier 1s and the enemy team has 3. No arty in this match, as it's a true Tier 2 match. I don't recognize anyone in this match. This is a very typical match you'll see at Tier 2. For anyone using XVM, most of the information that's provided means very little in low-tier matches. Match winning percentage means nothing considering most of the players will have a low number of matches. Individual stats will also be misleading with extreme winning percentages and efficiencies. What you do want to keep an eye out for is veteran players in the 4,000 plus match range. Those players will typically be more dangerous. In low-tier battles, this map will play as follows. A few tanks will rush field and get wiped out. A few tanks will go hill, with the remainder and majority of both teams camping near base. Based on having a tank with speed, my best option is go up the hill. This will allow me to flank out the base campers with minimal resistance in between. It should be noted that a field rush will work on this map, but it requires the bulk of the team moving together for it to succeed. Ideally, a few tanks need to hang back in case the enemy makes a strong field push to defend cap. Begin my ascent towards the hill. We have a light tank spotted in the field, and a second light tank. There's only one tank continuing to follow me up the hill. I'm going to turn back. I have some snipe shots on this T1E6. Line them up. Missed my first shot. Hit him with the second shot, and he is knocked down by our T1. Continue my ascent up the hill. I have a T1E6 with me. The other enemy in the field is knocked down by our T-18. Enemy spots at their base. Still heading up the hill. We have an enemy now spotted at F7. See if I can get a shot at him, but I can't due to terrain. There's now an enemy at C5, T1E6. I'm going to take a few blind fires at that Lich tractor. An enemy T1E6 has snuck through to C5. This is due to the lack of tanks that have come to this side of the map. I know I need to turn back and engage him before he can flank and get shots at our campers at base from a concealed position. I'm going to go back down and take him out. It's likely he's using these bushes as cover. And there's the T1E6. And I'm going to circle around him as he turns his turret here. Keep going to keep out of his line of fire, and our T2 light knocks him down. Go back to heading up the hill. The T1E6 that was following me and continued up the hill has been knocked down. I've got a T2 light following me up the hill. Currently have a 1-tank lead. Normally I already would have pushed over the hill at this point, but with all the enemies pushing over and in towards our base, I want to make sure I keep that safe. Using the church as hard cover here keeps me from getting into a crossfire. The enemy T1, E6, and T2 medium are distracted, both firing at our T2 light. This allows me to get free shots at them without the threat of return fire. I'm going to line up the T1, E6, get a hit, and I knock him down. Line up their T2 medium. He is firing at our T2 light right now. Both of them were. Back up behind the church for cover. I'll let that T2 medium come to me. There's also a Panzer II towards my right, but he's on the other side of the church, so I should be safe. There's the T2 medium and the Panzer II. Missed my shot there. Taking fire from the Panzer II. Minor damage. Get a hit on the front of the Panzer II. Another hit. Basically trading shots here. Knock down the Panzer II. Take a hit from the T2 medium. Trade fire with him. I am on the losing end of this, but I knock him down. While I did take care of both enemies here, I did trade shots with the T2 medium, which caused my tank a lot of damage. I'll have to be a bit more careful going forward in this match, as I'm essentially one-shottable. We have a 4-tank lead. I've enlarged the sniper view here to show the strange arcing path the shells take to target. I'm sticking with center of mass shots due to the 550 meter range. Talking about some pretty long snipes here at 550 meters, but my crew is 100%, so I will get hits. Another hit. Missed that time. And I knock him down. Continue to roll up the hill. Push up and over the hill. My expectation is the enemy only has 1 tank left on the hill, and it's that Lich tractor that earlier was down at E7. As I come down the hill, I'm playing it cautious, moving from bush to bush, trying to stay in cover as much as possible. While I'm not expecting a lot of enemies on the hill, exact enemy composition at their base is unknown due to the limited radio range of my tank. There's the Lich tractor. Knock him down on the run. Keep going. The enemy is down to 3 tanks now. Cruiser 3, T-18, T-1E6. T-18 is the most dangerous of that group. T-126 appears that he's inside the building right now. Our T-126 is pushing in. He's backed out of the building, but I don't have any shots at him. Cruiser 3 is spotted as well. And there's the T-18. He was expecting me to come down the hill. He's tracking me. He misses his shot. Keep moving. I want to get behind cover. This is a dangerous engagement for me. Hit no damage. I'm backing up to try to keep him on the move. Another hit. He's tracked. Normally a hit from a T-18 in this situation would be fatal, but his round was almost entirely absorbed by my right track. If he'd been using premium rounds, I would have been destroyed. Get a hit. Bounce. Rotating around him to keep moving, and knock him down for the kill. And we win the match. Based on information from the World of Tanks replay manager, I destroyed 6 tanks for a top gun, damaged 2 more, hit 26 of 34 shots for 908 points of damage, and earned 1,291 experience before the double. Overall, this battle was pretty typical for a Tier 2 match. The bulk of both teams camped base. The enemy, though, sent quite a few more tanks to the hill. I kept an eye on the minimap and came back down the hill as necessary to engage enemies along the lake in the middle of the map before they were able to flank my team's base campers. Once the enemy's hill push was defeated, I pushed on to the enemy base and flanked out the remaining enemy forces. My engagement near the end of the match with the enemy's T-18 was a bit hairy due to my tank's low health. I kept on the move and used hard cover to force the T-18 to chase after me. His constant traversing kept him from being able to get a beat on my tank's weak spots. The second replay that we'll be looking at is in my Panzer II on Ensk from December 28, 2012. Please note that this is an 8.2 patch battle. The Panzer II was developed in 1934 and based on the Panzer I design, but larger and armed with a 2-centimeter anti-tank gun. The tank was designed prior to the Spanish Civil War, which showed that tanks required more effective armor to survive. Previous tanks were only designed to stop machine gun rounds and HE shells. The 2-centimeter anti-tank gun was also generally ineffective against many Allied tanks. Many models of the Panzer II were developed over the course of the tank service life to the end of the war, which included other uses of the chassis like the Lukes, Marder II, and the Westby. In-game, the Panzer II is a mix of mediocre speed, an effective but limited 2-centimeter flak gun, and very effective frontal armor. The Panzer II is most effective in medium to close range operations due to the 350-meter maximum range of its gun. Where the tank really shines is at close ranges where it can quickly unload its 12-round clip into a target, doing significant damage in the process. The Panzer II is my favorite Tier 2 tank. It allows for very aggressive play and will generally win out against almost any other Tier 2 tank. Selective use of premium rounds gives the gun enough punch to take down more difficult targets like T-18s and the Hotchkiss. As noted at the top of the loading screen, this is a standard battle. Reviewing tank composition for this battle reveals the following. This is a Tier 3 battle with 5 Tier 3s and 8 Tier 2s on each team. Both teams also have 2 Tier 2 arty pieces. While I don't recognize any players in this match, the enemy team has a member of UMB on their team, a clan that specializes in low-tier play. This match is on the higher end of the difficulty scale for a Tier 2 tank, between the Tier 3 tanks and artillery. Between the artillery and Tier 3 tanks, I'm a bit outgunned. My plan early is to set up at J5 and keep an eye on the 5 and 6 column. In low-tiered battles, there will typically be rushes down the train tracks. This will allow me to stop a potential rush and protect artillery. I'm going to take the center road here. I'll knock down the concrete wall. My setup at this location is purposeful. The bush will provide me with soft cover, and I can back out behind the building on my right if I get spotted. Get a few hits on the T-126. I'm going to force a reload. The reload on this tank is approximately 4 seconds with 100% crew. Get a few hits on the T-126. I knocked down the T-126. Thus far, most of the enemies are clustered in town. About 6 of them spotted up in the C and D row. I'm going to continue to hold my spot. We have no one on the field side right now, so I can't really abandon this location. While I'd like to get into the main fight occurring in town, I've noticed, based on the mini-map, that we have nothing in the field on the eastern side of the map, making both our base and arty vulnerable. I need to hang back and defend this position. I am continuing to be patient. I want to note the Martyr 2 that is now heading west. That will come into play later in this match. I can't stay in a defensive position any longer. Our town forces have taken a severe beating. If I don't get into this match soon, it will definitely be a loss. Moving out, I head up the road on the 4 column. I have a PZ-35T to engage. Line them up. Start pouring rounds into them. Get a couple hits. The M2 next to the train tracks at E6 has knocked out our T1 E6, giving him an open run to our base and artillery. I need to turn back and engage him. And wait for him to pop up again along the train tracks, and there he is. Start pouring rounds into his flank. Getting hits from the rear. Took a hit there for no damage. Gonna knock him down. I'm gonna zip back into base and behind this building. I've chosen this position for my defensive stand purposefully. Unless artillery has moved down the 0 column, I have cover in this location from the building on my left. I can also back out to the alley on my left if necessary. We're down by 2 tanks right now. Our artillery needs to bail out of that position. It's not safe at all. It should be noted that I'm using premium rounds here. Regular rounds from the Panzer II's gun generally will not penetrate the front of a T-18. This is my only option, as flanking wouldn't be wise given the current tactical situation. Sticking with premium ammo right now.
Enemy is hit.
I'm pouring some rounds in the front of that Martyr under the train tracks. Pour a few more rounds into him. Probably should switch back to standard ammo, which I do now. T-18 is pushing in. Some hits, no damage. I'm now switching back to premium rounds. And I knocked down the T-18. I'm now out of premium rounds. Continuing to use this building for cover. Looking at the mini-map, our Martyr 2 is at G1, and our Luke's is at A3. He's engaging, likely the Cruiser 1. I'm moving in on the Martyr. I'm trying to get this Martyr to bite and come out behind cover. This is a little dangerous though, as artillery will be able to get hits on me since I'm out in the open. Luke's knocks down the PZ-35T. I'm going to see if I can knock down that building. I know the building is destructible, but the autocannon doesn't always destroy things like that. Continuing this Mexican standoff with the Martyr 2. He actually backs out of his position. I know the Martyr 2 can't one-shot me, but the real issue is artillery at this point, which is why I'm not charging him. I could easily one-clip him. We are now down by 1 tank. Martyr 2 has come out of cover, trying to get some shots on through the train cars. I've backed up a little too far and exposed the rear of my tank to an enemy Cruiser 1, taking a ton of damage. I somehow survived with 9 hit points remaining. I'll need to be careful from here on out as the outcome of this battle is still in doubt. Our Luke's is moving in on the enemy arty. I still have the Martyr 2 and the Cruiser 1. Luke's is now engaging artillery. He's on cap. but his goal is not to cap, obviously. It is to try to knock down that arty. Back out of cover a little bit. I've got flanks on that Cruiser 1, and I take my shots. Knock him down a third. And I knock him out with my second clip. Martyr 2 did not move in the interim. I'm going to try to get a move in on him. Our Lukes is knocked down by arty. It is now myself and the Martyr 2 against the T-57 and a Martyr 2. I'm currently at a disadvantage. I need to stay here and guard against the Martyr 2 from trying to cap our base or shoot me from behind, and I don't want to go out in the open because I don't want to get hit by arty. As I'm pinned down at base and unable to move, I try to communicate with our Martyr 2 to get him to move from his position at G1. He's contributed to the battle with a kill and does chat back cryptically. This battle could quickly turn into a win if he moved to a position where he could contribute. I have shots to flank the Martyr 2. I get a hit through the train car. I am pinned down, essentially. Waiting for the Martyr 2 to make the next move. Since I have a moment, I actually sent another message to our Martyr 2 to try to get him to move. Martyr 2 lights back up, but I have no shot. And I get another hit on the Martyr, no damage. T-57 has moved in. Get some blind shots in on the Martyr 2. I'm backing up to keep the building between me and the artillery. And I knock down the Martyr 2 under the train car. It's now myself against the T-57 at 100%. Using the building very carefully. He is on cap. I cannot pen his front armor, and I'm out of premium rounds. I'm going to have to flank him, but I can shoot him in the tracks for cap resets if necessary. I'm trying to bait him into firing, which is why I'm just poking out a little bit. Get a cap reset there. Playing this real careful. He just fired. Did some damage to the front. I'm now pushing hard to flank. Get some damage in there. Reloading, continuing to move, using a little bit of mobility this tank has. Getting more flank hits. Getting around behind him. He's just backing up here. Reloading. He cannot turn. He trapped himself. And I knock him down for the win. Based on information from the World of Tanks replay analyzer, I destroyed 6 tanks for a top gun, damaged 1 more, hit 131 of 264 shots for 830 points of damage, and earned 1,360 experience. Overall, I made a conscious decision to play a defensive role in this battle as I knew from the start that I was outgunned. This is a double-edged sword as my team impaled themselves and were wiped out in town. While I was tempted more than once and ultimately did briefly leave base, the lack of tanks in the eastern field as well as the middle of the map forced me back into a defensive role. The success of my defensive stand at base against the T-18, Martyr 2, Cruiser 1, and eventually the T-57 was aided by the enemy's lack of coordination. They came at me one at a time, which made it easy for me to counter them. Had they attacked in a group of 2 or more simultaneously, I wouldn't have survived. While I did make an attempt to communicate and get aid from our Martyr 2, my efforts didn't pay off. Even though you can't always count on your teammates to respond to requests, it's always worth trying as they can help turn a match if they pay attention. Thank you for watching this episode of What I'm Thinking. Stay tuned for another episode soon. In the next episode, I will continue the French tank destroyer tour that I started in episode 10 with the ARL V39 and AMX AC model 1946.
Ha ha ha.